When you listen to something like me talking about awakening or non-duality, or you or anyone, or Eckhart Tolle or whoever, when you listen to it, the myth would be that the way you're receiving their information, their mapping, their descriptions is the way it needs to look for you. That's a mistake because it won't look that way for you.
Very warm welcome, Angelo. Such a pleasure to talk to you again.
Thanks for having me back.
Interesting how I contacted you, because it came to me through a dream, and the dream was hilarious. So, are my eyebrows okay?
I want to hear about it.
So I'm in some town, walking down the road, and I hear your voice somewhere. Seems like there is some parlor there, some kind of shop. And I see, yay, Angela's there working, shaping women's eyebrows. It only costs $1,000 a pair. I thought it was such a funny dream that I emailed you or messaged you. So maybe it's time to shape the eyebrows.
If this career fails, then maybe I will consider it.
Oh yeah, well, it's a good, it doesn't take long for $1,000. So thanks to that dream, we are here today, and it just brought back to me how well our last talk was received on my channel. So everyone was touched by it, seemed like, and it was the most viewed interview or conversation so far. So you are the star on the show.
I'm glad your audience got something out of it. Yeah.
Sweet. And I
try to be pragmatic and give practical advice or actionable sort of advice. That's kind of how I try to gauge my conversations or messages. So
yes. And that's why I thought the topic of the myths is going to be very practical and very useful. As you know, everyone comes into seeking with a ton of expectations because there's so much information, so much available to read and listen and watch, and including you, including me, and so many others. And you want it or not, you build your own image of how it should be. So I thought, why not to explore these myths with you? And so my first question would be, what is the most usual myth that people come to you with?
Yeah. Well, there are so many, so let me think about it.
Okay.
let me feel into this.
Yeah.
I think the I don't know if it's the most common, but one of the most I would say sort of sticky, pervasive, and it takes some time to see through often for people is I don't know if it's a myth as such, like a belief that somebody has adopted at some point. It's more like the nature of human interaction that gives rise to this. But if I were to state it like a belief, it would be the belief that when you listen to something like me talking about awakening or non-duality, or you or anyone, or Eckhart Tolle or whoever, when you listen to it, the myth would be that the way you're receiving their information, their mapping, their descriptions is the way it needs to look for you. That's a mistake because it won't look that way for you. Rather, I try to, and I say this in different ways to people as I speak, but rather, if you can look for resonance, it's a felt sense. That's all I can give you. That's all I can I can transmit a kind of resonance, maybe. That's it. That's enough. It's powerful. It can be very powerful. But it's not, I'm not saying, hey, this is what your awakening needs to look like. This is what your journey needs to look like. This is what your end of seeking needs to look like. And it's easy to transmit a map to somebody that they hold in their mind, and they compare their experience to the map. And that can look like anything. It can look like talking about awakening. It can look like talking about no seeking. It can look like it's just this. Like any of those things can be turned into maps, right? So the myth would be that the way you're hearing it through language, which is the best I have in this moment. Well, I have body language and movement and so forth, but language is transmitting a lot or is communicating a lot. That's the best thing I have, though. And that's not what's actually being talked about. What's being talked about is what that language points back to in me. And what it points back to in me is where you and I are not too. Where, in fact, you and I don't exist as individuals in any way at all. So it's really more of a resonance or a feeling in. If you get if you kind of grok a resonance with what I'm saying in this moment or in any moment, or you or anyone else, that's what matters. It's like tune into that resonance, that feeling more, or maybe it's like more than a feeling. It's different than a feeling. It's an openness or a kind of breaking through to something that feels a little bit more like wonder or mystery or awe. That's really what I'm conveying. And also it's okay if you do adopt a map, and your mind's going to do some of this, right? The thoughts do this, they build maps, and so that's going to happen simultaneously, and that's okay too. But over time, I just really try to encourage people to start turning toward that resonance, or just start trusting that resonance. And the more you trust it, the more profound it gets, and the more mysterious it gets, and the more you realize you can like really just open to it. And then the whole seeking, mental constructs about awakening and non-duality and spirituality, all that stuff you see, it's just a bunch of thoughts, right? And you can just drop into that deep resonance with reality. And that voice of resonance, that signature will get more and more clear to you over time. And it may happen suddenly at times. You may have a sudden shift. You may have very slow kind of transformation, or you may just suddenly see like, oh, it's just this, like in a very, very clear way. And you can see a thought is only a thought, and a thought of self is a thought of self. A thought of separation is a thought of separation, but it doesn't actually refer to my direct experience. Whatever this direct experience is, doesn't have any of that in it. It's just this. It's very clear, unequivocal. That's kind of where it'll land at some point. And then you see that the resonance always was that. The resonance that was kind of leading you along or orienting you to that resonance always was just reality, unfiltered by thought, unfiltered by mind. So I think that's probably the biggest, or at least a very common one that's a little sticky, is that people, because of doubt, because of self-doubt and so forth, and because of the nature of thought, tend to hear what I'm saying, turn it into a map, and then compare their experience to the map, and they go, oh, I must not have it yet. It doesn't sound like what Angelo said, or it doesn't sound like what Ilona said, or it doesn't sound like what Rupert said, or whatever. It won't. You will go off the map with this, and there's good news. And it won't look like any map of your own even. It's just, in a sense, it's uncharted territory all the time. But there's a deep peace in that as well. So that's one. I don't know if that's something you would agree with.
I encounter that a lot. Yeah, but it's just natural how the mind works and how it creates all these kinds of ideas about something that we don't know until we know. And when we know, it's not what we thought. So I think this myth of how it should be, it has to go first. If I don't know how this should be, it can be anything. It can be like this moment right here, right now. But if I think I know how it should be because Angela said so, or the Ashanti said so, then it will never happen. Sometimes people come and say, yeah, but Eckhart Tolle sat on a bench for 2 years. Yes, he did. Do you want that? Are you Eckhart Tolle? Thank God you're not.
Yeah. I've had this conversation with people a few different times that it goes like this, and it's really quite funny. They'll actually have a shift in identity. They'll have a clear awakening shift. And then after it, they'll be like, at first I didn't know if this was accurate. They'll say, I wasn't sure because this doesn't sound like what that person described or that person described. And yet, and so they'll say something like, so I really was like questioning, and yet the clarity just kept coming and it became more and more clear. And then they describe their experience right now. They'll describe it, and I'll say, okay, do you realize the thing you just said, someone's going to listen to that later and go, but my awakening didn't sound like that. And yet what they just said is actually rather remarkable. So there's something also funny about this in that when you transmit through direct insight, even if just after an initial awakening, when you transmit that way and speak, people feel it. They feel it. And it's so obvious to them that they almost impute a specialness onto it. It's not really special. Like it's remarkable. It's profound. It's natural. It's expansive. It's interpenetrated and all that. It has like some remarkable qualities, but it's not special in the way the self wants to be special. The seeming separate me wants to be special.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's part of it as well. And when people actually have that shift, sometimes they will say like, oh, okay, yeah, it's clear as day. Like it's so clear. And yet I can see how it didn't sound like what you said or what he said or she said. And yet I know it's the same thing. So it's kind of funny and a little bit ironic sometimes when that happens.
But there is that sense of freshness or uniqueness in that expression. Not in words. I mean, words, we all have limited words. There are no more words than we have. And but there's this sense of freshness when it's being described, when it's being seen, especially for the first time. It's like, wow, something amazing happens. Yeah.
Yeah. The freshness is a very good word for it. Yeah. When I say it, it's not an it. It's just reality, or it's whatever it is. But freshness is good in that it's like you'd never have to brace yourself anymore. You never have to be ready anymore. Being ready is holding back. You know, I think Dogen has a quote somewhere, being ready is already too late or something. It's like, we don't realize we're like, and it's all thought based. We're kind of holding back a little bit from everything, from life, from ourselves, from even relationship and very conventional things. And when you feel the release, it's like, oh, the freshness means that every moment is actually fresh. Really, it really actually is. It's like, this is literally just coming into being or just coming into appearance. And that is fresh. Like it's simple. I use the terms like spontaneous sometimes because it's just this spontaneity, simple, natural, non-accumulating. Nothing's accumulating. Nothing's held or stored or, and there's no anchor point, no need for an anchor point of any kind at all.
Yeah, like this moment right now, there is no script.
Yeah.
So whatever comes through, comes through. That's what it is. Freshly.
Yeah. Yeah. How about other myths?
Oh, there's so many. One myth I encounter a lot is that, once I'm awakened, I won't need to feel all these uncomfortable emotions, and I'm just gonna get like a ticket out of the prison of my own shadows or whatever. Like, oh my God, it's gonna fix my life and I will be happy ever after. People don't say these words, but that's a hidden expectation.
Yeah. Yep.
Eternal peace, no disturbances. Not like peace with whatever is happening. It's peace from disturbances, from annoyances, from grief, from sadness, from whatever uncomfortable things people want to run away from. Do you find that?
Yeah, that's a good distinction. That it's not, it's true. There is peace. The peace is within the conditions. The peace is within the experiences, regardless of how they present. But it's not peace as a result of not having to feel it. Like that's really a distortion. And I get it. I understand, especially after you've had an awakening of some kind, a shift, an insight that's thorough, and felt at the deepest level. It's like you've been in the desert a long time and you finally found water and you want to just keep drinking that water. And that's good to a point, until you're starting to almost, and I think what actually happens is thought kind of sneaks in still. Like it kind of says, oh, I don't have to, that's not happening. That's not happening. And I can just be in bliss. And it's like, yeah, but are you feeling angry right now? Because if you are, maybe you should just feel it. Are you feeling grief right now? And so you realize at least I realized, all of the reasons I had to wake up, the suffering was so gritty and so intense for me. And my interpretation of what was causing the suffering was wrong, actually. It was the suffering was itself the discomfort, but my interpretation of what was causing it, emotion and like the complete immersion into this flux of experience of being in a body, being a human, whatever it is, that there was some part of me that actually believed that was what was causing the suffering, but it turns out it's not. So all of the textures of being alive, emotion, and so forth, you ultimately will wake up within that as well. It's like Adyashanti has a nice way of like breaking this out. That awakening has two phases, like up and out and down and in. And I agree with that. There's a feeling of, yeah, up and out, like expansiveness, consciousness, that, and it is kind of has a blissful sort of equanimity. But at some point, yeah, the intensity of emotion and sensation comes and all of it. And at some point hopefully you realize like, oh, that expansiveness is also the going in. And so I might call that integration and disintegration interpenetrated, masculine and feminine interpenetrated. They're like, you could say they're like two movements that turn out to be the same interplay, that you can go down into anything just as readily as coming up and out of it. At some point, without the self-structure in the way, you see those are not two. The only thing that can make those seemingly two is an illusion of self.
Mm-hmm.
Strangely, that's what I find. Without that, it's like magic. Like things can be simultaneously empty and totally full. Things can be simultaneously gritty and intensely textured and energetically powerful, moving through the body, mind, or whatever it is. And also, there's no body, there's no form. It's totally formless. And there's no one suffering from that. So that can all happen simultaneously without that illusion, that fundamental illusion of separate self.
Yeah, because what shifts is where we are looking from. Like if I'm looking from an idea or belief, a structure that here's me inside the body, moving it, doing it, I'm trapped. I need to get out. But if it's just stepping back a little bit and then back and back, there's nothing is trapped. Nothing needs to get out. Nothing needs to awaken. It's being here.
Yeah.
And then all these movements can come and go, and everything's welcome. That's another thing. There's just a beginning of undoing and winding. There's so much movement. All these ideas need to leave, and all these structures need to restructure, realign, readjust. But with all that, there's this beauty of knowing that it takes care of itself.
Yeah, I agree. The realignment, restructuring is perhaps that's what initially is the challenge, because it's actually a very powerful process. And if you're trying to be some small me or something apart from it, or control the process, or control the spiritual journey, or whatever you think you're in control of, and it doesn't even have to be in a spiritual context. We have control issues around all kinds of things, our own health, the relationships, all of it. When you start to give the reins over to whatever you're giving the reins over to, meaning trusting that the realignment's natural, actually, in the way you just said, that's a powerful sort of maturing place, I think, in realization, where you really start to surrender. It's a vulnerable place. It's a surrendered place. And it also paradoxically has it's a kind of powerful place in that you're getting out of the way and letting the real power come through, which is beyond what you consider yourself to be. It has to be. Because what you consider yourself to be is very small, separate from everything. Like, of course, it's not real, but it feels so contracted and small. And, when you really start letting go of that and realize the power that thing thought it wanted, even though it didn't really exist, was really fractured, and it was connected to a lot of misinterpretations about separation, distinctness, and what comes of that is selfing, seeking, however you want to say that. So when you realize like that's not what power really is. Power is nature in a sense, or power is whatever this is. And it's amazing what it does every moment. Actually, what appears, it's truly astounding. For me, it's humbling too, in a way. Like, yeah, it's kind of compelling you to surrender again and again and again, until the sense of surrendering in any way even just gets completely dissolved into it. It's like it's like pouring dye into a giant pool or something, and at some point it's just dispersed in the entire pool, or something like that. Yeah.
Nicely said. Love it. I think.
I should also say,
okay, sorry.
in my experience, the self. Oh, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say about the next myth, but you carry on.
Yeah, this is one actually. This has a little bit to do with human psychology. It's selection bias.
Mm-hmm.
So people often will self-select themselves to a certain type of teacher, a certain type of group,
mm-hmm.
and or even a certain tradition like Zen or Dzogchen or whatever, or maybe totally opposite of that. They only want online Dharma. They're not interested in any kind of, it has to be totally secular or even scientific. But my point is, because of the different personality structures and even potentially like trauma patterns, people will self-select to certain teachers, groups, or traditions. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But at some point, it's helpful to question that sometimes, because what can happen is you put yourself into a group that reinforces the biases you already have and don't want to see. So this is one of the reasons that when I do what I do, whether it's talking on YouTube videos or in retreats, I'm not the kind of person that's insinuating in any way that like I know the thing you need to know. I'm more like, try this person. Have you tried this? You've worked with a male facilitator. Have you tried a female facilitator? You've never been on a retreat ever? Try a retreat. Like I give people suggestions, and I try to give them bandwidth to like really challenge themselves. Sometimes people get really in some kind of rut with their thoughts, and they'll say, "Oh, I've been working at this for 20 years and meditating. Nothing's happened." I'm like, "Well, what haven't you done? Been on a retreat? Have you worked directly with an awake facilitator that can push you, or that can pull the rug for you?" And so, so I think it's important to know that sometimes you have to think outside the box or work outside the box. You have to be curious about your own biases, I think, especially if you're feeling really stuck or you're looping with this,
mm-hmm.
the whole thing. You listen to what we're talking about, and yet fundamentally you really know you're just constantly suffering and lost in thoughts most of the day and all that. Try something different, that's and see if you're not using your own selection bias to only watch things a certain way, where you can keep it in the safe container of the self that tells itself it's trying to get out of a self. You know what I mean? So sometimes you really do have to find a way to pull your own rug, or find someone else to help you pull it.
Yeah.
Because you need some kind of disruption to that ego system.
Yeah. I agree completely. And because you can be doing the same thing for 40 years and still be in the same place. I want to awaken. I can't awaken. But I think, do you find that this is also connected to the self-worth in a huge way?
Yeah.
Because people have this an idea that I have to be worthy, I have to deserve it. If I meditate these many hours, if I do these many practices, so if I listen to every video on YouTube, I will be deserving and worthy, whatever. Because I think at the end of all of that, seeking is trying to find that you are okay, that you are worthy of this amazing things that other people are talking about.
Yeah, I totally see that commonly. Yeah, and it's not always obvious to the person, although sometimes it is. but I sense self-doubt in that a lot. Or just, I'm not worthy. Like, you don't have to earn awakening, right? You don't have to earn reality. Reality's here already. It's more like stop believing so tightly that story that you're the one who can't get it, or whatever the story is you're believing. And so I agree with that. I will also say that also gets built sometimes into complex interrelational stuff with people, and even in groups. The extreme example would be like a kind of culty group where there's almost a cult dynamic. It's not just the cult leaders who's making that dynamic. It's everybody who's following them. The whole thing is a kind of shared delusion, and it has a lot of biases that are built into the people coming into it. So what I want to say, the reason I wanted to say that is the feeling of I'm not enough, I haven't earned it, I'm not, it's just kind of shame thing. It's often shared among groups of people, or in relationship, or in interaction styles. And seeing that can also help, because there's a little bit of competitiveness in it too sometimes. I've had people who are just like insisting that this has to go the way someone else described it. Like, almost like they don't even want to hear me say it's not going to go the way someone else described it. It's going to go your way. And like, no, but they feel like that person has something I don't. If you think someone has something you don't, if that's prominent in your experience, really look into this. Like, it's a competitive thing, or it almost feels like to be worthy, I have to get what they have. And what I want to say to that is, this process is a very intimate, personal process in that way. It's not a group thing. A group doesn't wake up. Sanghas can be helpful, facilitators, all those things can be helpful for resonance and so forth, but it really is a kind of solitary journey. So for some people, what's really hard is actually letting go of the idea of where they fit in, letting go of the hierarchy thing, letting go of constant seeking for validation, and or just constantly analyzing for where they get validated and where they don't, and realizing that relational matrix we live in can be really hypnotic for people, and being willing to just let go of that part of yourself too, that needs validation, that needs constant mirroring. And the reason is, a lot of that mirroring is actually self-mirroring. What's often mirrored from other people, especially people who are mind identified, is like saying, hey, I'm a someone, and as long as you don't challenge that I'm a someone, I will also encourage you to be a someone, and we'll just keep pretending we're someone. I don't know if you've ever seen these kinds of relationships, but they're all over the place. And it's also leading to another interesting issue, is why, when people are starting to really get clarity on this stuff, physically and energetically and somatically and emotionally, they often find it can be hard to talk to people, because people often want complicity. They're looking for complicity, and you feel it. It's like, but I can't give you complicity because I don't see a self. I don't experience a self, right? So some of this stuff is relational, and the worthiness issue does play into relationality sometimes. And so again, it's just something to investigate in yourself if you really feel stuck, if you really feel like, I'm just not worthy. Like, I just don't feel like I'm worthy of this somehow. Maybe Angelo was, maybe Ilona was, maybe so-and-so was, and maybe this person was, but somehow I just don't feel like I've earned it yet. Or like, look into that. What's the unworthiness about? And does it relate to others? Does it relate to a group you're in? Does it relate to the parenting style you grew up with? Like, this is shadow work, but it does come into play for some people.
Yeah, and who decides who's worthy? I mean, what's the criteria? Compared to what? Like, you're here.
Yeah, exactly.
You're here. That's it. That's enough. You're here. You're valid. You're true. You're alive. That's all that counts. Yeah. Everything else is a mental fog. And then trying to get out of that mental fog by becoming worthy. Do you even know what that means? Being worthy? How would that look like? Yeah.
Yeah, that it aligns with what I was saying earlier about wanting to be special. We don't realize, like, wanting to be special as a human among humans is also wanting to be separate. and distinct and feel separate and distinct and be elevated somehow. And even if you do find specialness in a group or a situation or whatever, you're going to immediately fear losing it, because that specialness is totally artificial. It's the same as what you're talking about. It's the same as like worthiness, but it's like, oh, if I got the hyper worthiness somehow, and sometimes they project it onto me or you. Looking at a non-duality teacher, they're like, oh, that's what I want, because look at all the people who listen to that. Look at all the people who validate that. And it's like, it's not that though. It's not about being special. It's not. This insight, this transmission doesn't come from specialness at all. In fact, it comes from some sense that there is no, as you said, the paradigm of well, I'm using the term specialness, but the paradigm of worthiness or unworthiness is totally a mental paradigm. Like, you have to let go of all of it. When you let go of all of that paradigm of validation, worthy, unworthy, special, not special enough, you're going to enter some very mysterious territory very quickly if you just let it go right now, right? You can let this go right now. Anyone can.
Okay.
And you're going to enter some mysterious territory. And that can come with fear. I should always point that out. You may actually feel a physical, like, whoa, I'm really letting go. What's left?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to be left. I don't know who I am. I don't know what's going to, and all I can say is I'm not going to give you the answer, because you don't need an answer. Just go. Just keep going. Just let go and see what's there.
Yeah. When I meet this question or desire to be special, I just say, you are unique already. There's nothing special about that. Everyone's unique. This form is unique. Like every leaf on the tree is unique. It's natural. There's nothing amazing about that or extraordinary. We all are unique. So just rest with that. Don't need to be special to be unique. And whatever is showing up here is right. So being special is
so
just a game, mental game. I'm better than you, and I don't know, more achieved, more read, more retreats. Yeah, that's another thing, is then people get addicted, let's say, to going to retreats. I met a few people who go and go and go and go. And when there is a next one, and maybe the third one in a month, it's a special retreat coming up.
Yeah. I also like to point out this sense I have that anything we talk about, anything I say, like, if you never have ever gone on a retreat and you feel like you're looping, try a retreat. On the other hand, exactly what you're saying, you may use retreat as a kind of coping mechanism in your life without even realizing it, or like it's almost like an avoidance. It could be potentially. So the point I want to make is, there is this kind of middle way to this. That people can fixate in a lot of different ways. They can fixate by overemphasizing a teacher, and they can fixate by underemphasizing the role of any teacher. Be like, oh, I got to figure this out on my own. It's all me, So what I sense is really is fixation patterns, and I try to kind of pull the rug on one end of it, or I just make suggestions of like, have you looked at it this way, and try to move somebody a little bit more to the middle on things. But I agree with you. Like, I know people also who endlessly meditate, or endlessly do psychedelics. Like, any of these things can be fixation points. Yeah. So I've had times with people where, very established people and clear people, where I've said, I think you should take a month off and not do anything non-dual at all. Don't watch videos, don't meditate, don't do any of the normal things you do, because I feel like the routine itself is kind of holding a little bit of identity, perhaps. That's just a sense I get with certain people, and they can do whatever they want. But I've made that suggestion before. Like, maybe you should not watch any videos for a month and just see what happens. It should be totally natural,
So what you're talking about is really disrupting patterns. And when there is a disruption, there is a discomfort. There is something to look at. There's something that is, oh, I haven't been here before. What's now? uncertainty, letting go, surrendering, it all can happen when the patterns are disrupted.
Mm-hmm. I
Otherwise,
agree.
it keeps going. 40 years later, I'm still here. I'm not happy.
Yeah, that brings up another reasonably common myth that sneaks in here and there. It can be kind of situational, but it definitely sneaks in. And that is, let's call it insight, awakening, realization, clarity, whatever, liberation, whatever you want to call it, at whatever stage it seems to be. Those insights don't arrive only when you're in deep samadhi bliss, clear clarity. In fact, often they arrive when you feel the opposite. So the myth would be, I feel like absolute crap. I'm I'm confused, I'm disoriented, I can't meditate, I can't sleep right now. I'm emotionally a mess. The belief is that means I'm not being spiritual right now, or I'm not getting it, or I'm not close, or that's not true, actually. You may be really close to just totally letting go right now because of the disruption. So disruption's good in general. Now, again, some people rarely can fixate in disruption. Like they live a life of total chaos. And I might say, you need a little bit, maybe just try some little order there. But generally speaking, when disruption occurs, or you feel disruption in your emotion system, disruption in sleep, disruption in practice, those are always opportunities to just look a little deeper. What's really going on here?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I was identifying with a certain structure and that structure is collapsing. Now is a really good opportunity to investigate the nature of who I think I am at all, or identity itself in real time. And the beauty of it is often when there is disruption, collapse of certain life structures, whatever it is, and this can be tragedy, it can be the loss of someone, it can be a health shock, it can be change in jobs, it can just be random things that happen, like sleep patterns get really disturbed, or you wake up every morning with some fear. These disruption patterns are usually when something that was more complex starts to deconstruct. So the beauty of it is to utilize it, or I'll just say utilize what I'm saying, is that you don't need complexity. It's a simplicity thing. That's the beauty of it. Just trust that it's all perfectly okay. Trust that this is exactly where you need to be, even though you feel confused, disoriented, emotionally maybe not super comfortable right now. That may be the perfect concoction you need, or the perfect soup you need to look deeper into your identity right at this moment. So that the myth would be, when things aren't going well, it means I'm far away from some insight or something. Not usually the case. People wake up all the time, have shifts all the time when they're in significant turmoil, confusion, disorientation.
So the myth is really that awakening is pleasant.
Yeah, or yeah, exactly. That it's, well, certainly that it's always pleasant. Yeah.
It's wonderful, except that it can be anything. It can be the highest high, it can be the lowest low, and all in between. And yeah, but what about all these people in bliss, and they make videos and they tell us, yeah, but what happens 5 minutes after that? Nobody knows.
Mm-hmm. I do say this sometimes, like I like to meet people in person,
Mm-hmm.
especially if somebody's like a non-dual facilitator or whatever. I like to meet them just because anyone can act any way they want on a video for 30 minutes, like, and whatever. Not even if you're trying to act, but you're conveying a message and you're in a state of equanimity and calm because you're talking to a camera. But just spend 2 or 3 days around somebody, you'll know whether they've done the shadow work or not. You'll feel it.
Yeah.
You can feel if somebody's really at peace, if somebody's really equanimous, if they really interact with others in a fluid, natural way that shows a natural compassion, love, enjoyment, and non-selfishness. It's a clear, real human litmus test for me sometimes, if that realization itself has been really integrated into that person in all areas of their life, and which means mundane, right? Like that's sometimes a litmus test as well. But I don't really know. I mean, you see people online and they speak very clearly, unless I see them in person and I can actually interact with them when their guard is down, then I'll know whether that insight has really thoroughly integrated. And
Mm.
it has for many people. It's really cool to be around people that have that kind of integration. They're powerful energetically. Like they have an effect on people around them intensely. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. I have no possibility at the moment to meet anyone in person. I've been removed and placed on a tiny island in the middle of nowhere. So it's not easy to get here. It's far away.
A literal island?
Yeah, I live in Mauritius now. You know, it's a tiny
Oh,
island in
cool.
Indian Ocean.
That's neat.
Yeah. So a little bit I miss that. Conversations, live meetings and stuff. All I have is Zoom now and I utilize it. But yeah, it's true. When you meet in person, it's a different thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess my point with that is just not that I'm judging anybody, but it's just like, yes, these descriptions we give of, say, expansiveness and no self insight and non-dual insight, these are very real. But are they stable in your life in the mundane situations? That's really where the rubber meets the road, right? And it can take some time to really integrate that. It takes some years to integrate that, especially if there's a lot of trauma and things like that. Like, it doesn't, awakening does not make your trauma go away. It gives it nowhere to hide. So it will come up to the surface and you will have to deal with it. So,
yeah. And it's so interesting that when seeking, it seems like, oh, it will take the drama away, the trauma away, all the ugly stuff away. And here it is, right in the face. Ouch.
Yeah, exactly. And this kind of shows why the seeking itself, that mechanism, is dissociative. It's trying to seek something outside of this moment, right? Even though it thinks it's a lofty spiritual goal, it itself is actually avoidant. And so of course it's going to be disappointed at the end. The separate self vehicle that feels like the seeker, it's going to be disappointed. And at some point it will be seen through completely and seeking won't be there. Yeah.
So you're saying I cannot run away from all my crap?
Right. Yeah.
Aww.
But it makes it so much more manageable just to be available for it. You know what I mean? Just to be available for whatever comes through, whether it's, oh man, here's some shame coming up. What's this about? You know, or trauma comes up, or you have a reaction you never thought you would have. You suddenly feel jealousy and you've never felt jealousy or don't remember. Like, those things happen to people as this realization clarifies. Like, it kind of comes back for everything. All the things you think you have even sometimes grown up out of, you maybe didn't. You built a scaffolding of identity over it, but you need to go back and feel, and you'll feel it like a child feels it at times. You know, you may feel very childlike feeling fear or something. It's not going to be like a year-long experience of terror, but you may have very intense moments of feeling like a childlike fear or an anger that's been repressed for a long time because, you know, whatever your trauma landscape taught you to be a people pleaser, for instance, and you don't set boundaries well, and anger, you never could afford anger as a child because your parent was the angry one or whatever it is, right? That stuff will come back sometimes, and it's okay, but it can be greedy, surprising, can be intense, and it's all part of reality. You know, it's just here, just like anything is here. Yeah.
And this is actually means that one is awakening to its own stuff. But the mind says, no, that means I'm not awake. I'm not awake yet. I'm not awake enough. I'm not. I'm going backwards. That's usual conversation. I'm going backwards. I seem to arrive at what was here before. But it's really just, yes, going backwards, literally going backwards, back into zero. Like seeing that all these patterns, they have been learned, taught, taken in, consciously, unconsciously, hypnotically, whatever. It's going back to not knowing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what just came up for me was to just make a point for anyone listening that when inevitably this stuff does come, and again, it can feel so much more direct than you remembered before any kind of shift. So before awakening, you may have felt fear, you may have felt sadness or grief, but you probably felt it through a filter of thought. When all of a sudden you don't have that filter of thought, it's very direct. It's a very direct experience. Many people have said to me, like, when I feel fear now, I am the fear. When I feel sadness, it's like everything is sad. It's all sadness for a time. It also tends to move through much quicker. And I find the emotions become much more fluid. And over time, they calm down a lot in general, is what I find. But the point that I wanted to make for anyone listening is that there's actually a remarkable amount of value in notice, especially if you're not used to what's happening. If you're starting to feel shame and it's like, oh God, shame. Sometimes you might even be disinclined to label it or even recognize what it is. But once you start going, okay, I'm just feeling shame. There's a sense of shame here, or let's say call it unworthiness, whatever you want to label it. There's a tremendous amount of value in doing one very simple thing. And that is like literally turning toward it. Just going, welcome, shame. Welcome. I don't want to feel, there's something in me that does not want to feel this. And yet, let's just feel it. Like, let me just feel this. Let me just go where it takes me. It's okay. Because what we don't, I think, realize at first, often when these intense emotions come, is that the problem, so to speak, the discomfort of it, the discord feeling, the dysphoria of it, is not the emotion itself. It's that we're always trying to pull away from it. We're always trying to mitigate it. We're always ultimately trying to control it and try to be someone separate from it. That's what's actually uncomfortable. The emotion isn't intrinsically uncomfortable at all. So just the simple mere acknowledgement and willingness to do the best you can in this moment, to just turn toward it and just go, okay, let me just feel this shame. That's actually really powerful. It's a simple act. But if you don't know what else to do and you feel out of sorts and emotionally tumultuous and your mind is confused or whatever, just do that. Just acknowledge it. Just acknowledge what it is. See if you can just feel it a little closer. That will take you a long way. Especially if it's a habit, because what you're doing with that is you're just reversing the other habit. And the other habit is dissociate.
Yeah.
Thought, distraction. And this is just turning that around and going, I'm giving my consent to feel this. And there's power in that.
Yeah. Rather than running away, running towards. Or just being here and saying, come. Be okay. I'm safe.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's such a maturity in that, like in relationship too, right? If your child feels safe with you all the time because they know you hold a space where it's non-judgmental, nurturing, supportive, and you're letting them be who they are in that moment, that's great parenting, right? And the child will know they feel safe. You can do that internally as well. If there's a part of you that felt unsafe, parent it. Make sure it feels safe. It's not complicated, actually. But it is reversing habits. That's what this part of things is. Shadow work is kind of reversing tendencies of dissociation, pretty much, I think.
So the myth can be that after I awaken, once awakening happens to me, it will be orderly. It will not be messy. It will be clear all the time. And that's not how it is.
That's a good one. Yeah. The linearity thing, we don't always realize how much of a bias we have or an expectation or actually a identifying with. some kind of linearity and expectations being met. That's very heady. It's very mind based. Without really thoroughly investigating it, you may not realize that until you enter the world of nonlinearity, because this is nonlinear. Like, there's nothing linear about this. It's not random either. It's not. I wouldn't call it chaos. There's a settledness totally in this experience, and yet, if I try to impute linearity on this, I'm going to get frustrated, impatient, and disappointed every single time, because it's just what it is. It's not following some kind of breadcrumbs or steps or expectations. Yeah, that's a really good point. It's like, the challenge would be, can you live without expectations? Or maybe I would say it like, can you live without being attached to expectations? Like, sure, I'm not going to say there's no conventional role for making a plan or something. These are conventional things we do, right? But there's a difference between just making a plan and that's it, and having expectations that we feel identified with and rigidly attached to, such that we're either impatient or frustrated or disillusioned, like constantly, right? Like holding the view of the one who has to hold that future that has to go a certain way. That's already uncomfortable. And of course, it's never going to happen on your time frame, so that's uncomfortable. And then it's probably not going to happen the way you want it to. So now you're disappointed. So that whole game of expectation, which is kind of tied into linearity, is a game you don't win. So at some point, just stop playing the game. And like, I don't have to have expectations about anything, because this is more than enough. This it's not a thing, it's not an event, but it's more than enough. It's actually so much, in a way, that it's indescribable. So much clarity, so much depth, so much fluidity.
And what you described in not a glorious way is, it can just be called seeking. It's really not glorious thing. Mm-hmm. Trying to escape, getting disappointed, trying to control, getting disappointed, it will never end. Unless it's stepping out of that and seeing that this is what's going on. It's not glorious thing. It's nothing to be proud of. It's nothing to put a medal on the shoulder or somewhere here, because I'm a seeker. I'm a spiritual person. I'm good. That needs to go.
Yeah. This is probably related to what you just said, or related to what we're talking about, but another one came to me that's a myth. This is a myth that I think is kind of subconscious almost. It's like the myth you see only after it's starting to be dispelled. Uh-huh. And that is, we think insight, awakening, realization, whatever it is you want to call it, we think that's going to fortify us. It's quite the opposite. It's quite the opposite. For me, it was. It doesn't fortify you against feeling, or it doesn't fortify you in some strengthening your character way. It actually feels viscerally and actually moment to moment living very different than that. It feels porous. It feels wide open, vulnerable, totally accepting of whatever's this, because there's no way not to accept it, because it's already, the moment it registers, it's, in a sense, it's in the past, but it's just here. It's here. And so there's not a fortification. It's quite the opposite. And maybe that's one of the major transitions that happens, is the fortifying sense itself dissolves over time, until you realize you don't have to be fortified. You don't need to self-protect in that way. Yeah.
And it's totally not what mind expects, though.
Yeah.
All right. So we were little babies, little kids, and we got hurt. We got protection, more protection. Do this, behave this way, pretend to be like this, have this mask. And it's just more and more and more protection. So mind thinks, oh, there must be an ultimate protection. It's called awakening.
Mm.
If I get there, I'll be I'll be protected from everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By just saying, hold on a second. It's dismantling all that
Mm.
and finding that precious innocence or playfulness or beingness,
Mm-hmm.
like a raw, precious thing
Mm-hmm.
that finally can breathe, get out of all these
Yeah.
prisons of limitations, rules,
Yeah.
and ideas how it should be, and like, oh, I can be safe. No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point as well. All of these myths also come with a surprise when the myth is dispelled. And the myth of this fortification thing is you never really wanted to be fortified. um, when when it's clear in the way you described that in this moment there is no need to be fortified, there is no need to build up a barrier or a wall of any kind, to brace myself, like none of that's necessary at all. Then you realize there's actually, in the past, trying to find the fortification is what made you feel unsafe. Now you feel that, paradoxically, there's a kind of safety in this, in the just total openness and relinquishing of control. It's a felt sense of safety. It doesn't mean that the body's not going to age and die and it's not subject to disease. Like that's all true. But there's a deep for me, as I'm reflecting on your words, there's a deep sense of safety in the deep resonance with, call it the cosmos or whatever, that everything's really okay, like really really fundamentally okay. That's where the safety is that I think everybody really wants. But you can't know you want that until you start to actually come into contact with it, so to speak,
Yeah,
because
it's
we're
so
so
true.
used to surrogates, the mind's version of that. Yeah.
Mm. Right. So the myth is that everything is not okay, that I am not okay.
Mm.
This experience is not okay. My environment is not, my thoughts are not okay. My feelings are not. That's the hugest myth, I think, because
Yeah.
eventually it's clear that everything's okay.
Mm. Yeah, I think you nailed it. That is definitely the biggest myth. It, it even it even gets down to this felt sense that I need to do something at all. It's a felt sense. It's a restlessness. Like I need to do something because things are not okay. But but even when you see through, like, and you really do know instinctually everything's okay, where things are just fine,
Mm.
and you can even see through that self structure, there's still a little residue sometimes that takes a while to just dissolve. And the residue's like, it's like I gotta do something. I gotta react. It's like, even though you know there's nothing that needs to be done and nothing that needs to be fixed, and there's no one even to fix it, there can be this kind of urge. It's almost like the root of selfing is sort of remaining, and that's fine. It will dissolve on its own. It will settle down. But yeah, it's that exactly what you said. The sense that something's wrong, and then the felt more dynamic sense that I need to do something. When you realize you don't have to do a damn thing, when you realize it doesn't matter if I go work out right now, or I go take a nap, or I go eat something, or it just doesn't matter. Like there's something so freeing in realizing that in the most fundamental way, it actually doesn't matter. Um, that combined with this sort of non-agency, no sense of a separate one trying to control anything, that to me is really the feeling or the signature of freedom. And I will make one caveat to anyone listening who might think I'm suggesting that you just suddenly have bad behaviors or something. That's not how it usually turns out. I find that it's the opposite. I find that it puts into alignment what really matters to you. It frees up a lot of energy to take care of what you actually want to take care of. It frees up so much energy for creativity. It frees up so much energy for just natural enjoyment of everything that's already happening. If you want to be a better parent, be completely present. Don't have an agenda. And that's where you find yourself. It's like, I don't need to fix anything. I don't need to fix that child, or everything's perfectly okay the way it is. And then you can just respond to the environment as it changes and fluctuates as it will. So yeah, truly having no agendas in the way we're talking about, to me, is freedom. And it's born of really digesting that there is nothing wrong and nothing that needs fixed.
Amen. And I want to bring one word here: authenticity. That what you described is just being authentic, being you, being yourself in the moment. You want to go eat, you go eat. You want to go play, you go play. What you want, what's coming through authentically, not what I should or shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So if I feel safe, I can be myself. And I don't even need to think if I'm worthy or not worthy, or what's going on, or who has what, or who has said what. I'm just here. Nothing's missing.
Mm-hmm.
And even words like authenticity or alignment or enlightenment are not needed. They're needed when we talk to somebody about it, sharing ideas. But in the moment, just, playing with cats, doing your dishes, going for a walk, or, working. Is it comfortable or not? Are you trying? Are you putting a mask on? Are you hurting and pretending that you're not? These are things to look at. But underneath it all, there's just being you, being comfortable being you, knowing that it's all okay. You're okay. And I think this is what people want to hear. That's why they're watching these videos. They just want to know that they want somebody to tell them that you're okay. There's nothing wrong.
Yeah. I thought of a myth as you were speaking,
Cool.
or a way to structure a statement about it. I might have forgot it though, which is okay. It'll come if it wants to. Yeah, here's what it was. There's a sort of myth, I think, when you look at, say, somebody like me who speaks online about this, or you, or anyone else, or just even not looking at a specific person, but just a kind of general idea you might have, that you come to a place where it's like the ultimate spiritual existence, maybe something like that, right? The reason that's a myth, and I just want to point this out, is it is an exact relation to what you just said. It's that at some point, and it can happen abruptly. I've seen it happen abruptly, and I've seen it be just like disturbing to people for a while in deep realization, is when the whole spiritual specialness just drops away. And it can happen like suddenly, like the whole, what you thought spirituality even was, literally just goes up in flames. And what's left is a total naturalness. And that total naturalness is what this whole thing has been about, the pathless path and the gateless gate, all of that. It's all part of the deal, but it can be surprising how much goes away when your whole spiritual endeavor goes away too. But I wouldn't, yeah, I don't even know what it means. Like when I talk about spirituality, or people talk about spirituality as like a thing, it's like, I don't even really know what that is. It's just a collection of thoughts like anything else. But what's ultimately revealed is really a kind of total naturalness, and it's not spiritual per se. It's not. I can't categorize it. It's uncategorizable. So that's a bit of a myth too. That the spiritual journey kind of like comes to a crescendo where it's this ultimate spiritual whatever you think that is. It actually comes to an end at some point. For me, it did, and for many people, it does. So
Yeah, I agree. That word spiritual, it has no real meaning. I was always confused when people say, you are spiritual. I'm like, what does that mean? And I would look inside and think, what are they talking about? What is this being spiritual? To this day, I don't know what that means.
yeah. Yeah, the best I can come up with is it's kind of a way of dressing and a way of speaking sometimes, and maybe something about where you go and the people you're around. But it's a very, like, it's almost like a style more than I really don't know, honestly. Yeah. I don't think I personally had a strong spiritual sense. If somebody does, by the way, and they're on the path and it feels like all spirit, there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just pointing out from my own experience, I don't really ever feel like I had some strong identity about spirituality or being spiritual. I just didn't want to suffer anymore. That was how it was for me. I was interested in what we're talking about only to end my own suffering initially. That's what it was about. I just felt something felt off. Something felt really off in the way I was experiencing the world and myself and life and so forth. Very, very, very uncomfortable. And then with the shift, I saw clearly what it was. And then the discomfort, that was the beginning of the end of the discomfort. It took a while. The discomfort didn't go away overnight, but it changed tremendously, instantaneously with that shift. But yeah, for me, it was all about that. It was simply about something feels wrong, something feels off about the way I'm experiencing everything, and it's really miserable, and no one talks about it. And then as soon as I found someone who not only talked about it, they had a way of addressing it directly, I was all in. That's how it was for me. So I didn't really have a sense of what spirituality means, and yeah, I don't really know.
Well, I read Jen McKenna's books. The first one was Spiritual Enlightenment. That's the only kind of meeting that word spiritual, because it's said on the cover of the book, Spiritual Enlightenment. But I could never connect to that word. I just thought of another myth because of the age of AI and stuff. You know, we can go on ChatGPT and it's going to help you awaken, and it's going to tell you everything, and it will give you all the texts and everything you need to know. And I think that's a myth. I don't know. I never met anyone who came to me, or at least I never heard of it, that somebody would wake up by having a chat with ChatGPT yet. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe somebody can write a comment and say, yes, that's me. But the way I see it is just mirrors the mind, mirrors whatever is coming through here. So if you have a blind spot, that blind spot is going to be there. That now people use that ChatGPT to work with their shadows or work with their, I don't know, patterns and conditioning. But it's not alive. It hasn't got that awareness. It doesn't see you. And you cannot see you. So I think that's another myth.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree. There's a role for the active, alive, in the moment reflection that's going on. And it's not just through words either. I mean, these are large language models, and anyone using them for anything important should know what they do, right? Especially if you're using them for psychology, or as a therapist or awakening. You have to understand, like, all it's actually written to do is to predict what word you want to hear, and then the next word that you want to hear, and the next word you want to hear. They're good at synthesizing data and information. They have value, but you really should understand that's what's happening. Something is just telling you what you want to hear, because that's what large language models do. But importantly, I think especially with like subtler things and insights and fixation and stuff, and I think they're going to have a lot of trouble tracking what's going on with people, because I mean, when I'm working with somebody, I see the way they look, their eyes move, the way their body's moving. I can see the moment they relax. Like I pick up so much that's not has nothing to do with language at all, not verbal language.
Mm.
Um, but also there's this place of total freedom where there's no referencing the past. There's no referencing what is known or knowledge or language as the transmission itself. And of course, AI can't do that. I know it can't. I've worked with AI in a lot of ways, and it just can't do that. Um, so yeah, I can't say there's no value in it for people. That's up to them to decide. But yeah, when we talk about the real nuances of fixation and so forth that are going on in a human, those are dynamic and they're happening right now, and they're shifting right now. Like I can feel it's like a dance I'm with in somebody. I don't think a large language model is going to be able to do that, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm curious. Maybe somebody woke up just by using ChatGPT. I'd like to know.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other one that I sometimes am curious about is psychedelics. Like I think there's a role for them for
Mm-hmm.
many people, certainly not everybody. You don't need psychedelics to wake up, and you don't need psychedelics to move through all the stages of insight and dropping away of perceptual filters and fetters. Like you just don't, because many people I know didn't use them. But I've heard of one or two people that gave me a reasonably convincing story that they did have at least an initial awakening on psychedelics, or shortly after or something.
Mm.
Um, so again, there are tools out there, AI, psychedelics. There are tools that are more what we call traditional spiritual tools like meditation, mindfulness, inquiry. There are all these things that you can use. But again, there's something so direct and personal about realizing the nature of mind with a capital M, the realizing the nature of being. It's a very, very, very direct, simple, right now recognition that doesn't require a tool. That's the beauty of it. It doesn't even require the tool of your own mind. It's that clear. So so I guess what I want to say, that the myth I would add to what you just said or reframe slightly or something, is that tools in and of themselves can be helpful, but they can be a hindrance if you give them too much. If you use them to not look in the one place you need to look, and that's not into your ChatGPT prompt, and it's not with a mind-blowing psychedelic experience. It's right here, right now. It's like one clear look is all it really takes.
Mm-hmm.
With a total willingness. So yeah, that's the thing. Tools can be helpful, sure, but don't overemphasize them. Yeah.
Yeah, there are so many tools, and I see them as crouches. If you break a leg, you need support, and you have crutches, right? And you walk and
Mm-hmm.
walk and walk and walk. But then at some point your leg is okay, and then you can walk without them. But keep carrying them. Why? You don't need it. Oh, look, I have these
Mm-hmm.
cool tools. Go to every psychedelic
Yeah.
experience. Put them aside. What's here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
Like we don't need to carry every tool
That's a really good
around.
analogy.
We're not broken, but it can be helpful to come to that safety. Safety. It's a fundamental thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's such a trip. All this awakening thing.
It is. Trying to think of any other prominent myths that are sticking out to me.
How about special powers? Do you get any special powers with awakening?
So that's an interesting one. I think I think a lot of the traditions that talked about Siddhis, special powers, and so forth, I think they were overblown. Some of them, I've even seen videos of like spiritual teachers doing things that they're actually fake. Like, and you can see sleight of hand, making things manifest, and like it's very clear that it's not real what they're doing, that they're putting on a show. So I think some of that has probably a lot of that probably happened throughout throughout history, because it's just a way to get people's attention. It's a way to impress people. You know, tribal cultures and stuff are fascinated with shamanism and magic. So I think some of it was just made up, probably. Um, but I won't say that nothing extraordinary like that happens, because it does. But in my experience, it's not something like you have like a tool or you can control it. Like I can just read someone's mind, or I can predict the future on command. Like that's not how I experience it at all. However, some things have happened that are so obviously remarkably impossible in the normal way we think about things that I can't deny it. But for me, it's random. It'll just randomly happen. And I also try not to overemphasize it or waste energy. I don't have to now. I don't care. It doesn't stick out that much to me anymore, because it's happened a lot. But things like synchronicities that are really, really strange happening, meeting people a certain way, and then the way they describe the reason they found me is like really, really remarkable. It's not just because YouTube served them an algorithm, right? I've had a good number of moments where randomly, sometimes in deep meditation, I'll have this like, it's just like a visual snapshot. It's not it doesn't feel like a memory so much, but that's the closest thing I could say is a memory that never happened. And but it's not like that. It's a felt sense. There's an energetic felt sense that's almost like the karmic chain is so clear that I know something's going to happen, a certain thing, but it's not even related to me necessarily. And it'll be like a snapshot, like a few seconds. I just see, it's almost like a lens opening to a moment, and then it's gone. And I don't think about it after that. I usually don't attach to it at all. I don't even, whatever, it is what it is. And then it'll happen. Like it'll happen 3 days later, or it'll happen 2 months later. I've had that happen many times. And it's not just like, oh, I'm going to meet a new person. It's something very vague. It's like very specific. Like a certain person I know, a certain interaction, a certain thing happens, like something that is not explainable through coincidence. So I've had that happen a good number of times. So yeah, I think these kinds of powers that we would consider extra human or ESP type things, maybe even like some kind of future prediction type of stuff, they're definitely possible. They're also something I don't talk about a lot, because some people really get fixated on this. Like they want those special powers and they're trying to wake up so they can get special powers. If you're trying to wake up to get special powers, go try to make some money or something. Try to find another way to make yourself happy, because you're going to be very disappointed. It's not going to go like you think. But I can't say that they never happen in good conscience. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more like subtle things open, not something you can show, but inner powers open. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So outside you look the same. What's inside, nobody knows. Like even this, when I sit with people and they come on video and they start crying, I don't do anything. There's something there happening. Is that a special power to make people cry? I don't think so. But there's something starts happening. Or start laughing for no, just seeing something and start laughing uncontrollably. That's pretty special.
Yeah. Yeah. Transmission is definitely a thing. I mean, it happens for sure. There's something about it. To me, it doesn't feel like I'm transmitting to somebody. It feels like a local effect in the energy field. And it's just a combination of me and them or whatever. I should also say, yeah, as you were speaking, I thought of another. It's not a special power. It's not a special power that you would say an individual has, but it's this fascinating serendipity of if you kind of look at what if I look at what happened to lead me to the shift of awakening, like the breadcrumbs in my life, they were pretty extraordinary. Meeting the right person at the right time to say exactly the right thing that really opened up something for me. It just seems so not random. Like there's almost this choreographed nature to realization. I find it's like kind of like a clockwork actually. And now and as things are very clear now, and there's not thought like obstructing and in the way, I can see deeply into the karmic chains. Like it's not something I can explain, but I can see it, including previous incarnations and so forth. But again, I really don't like to talk about this stuff because I don't want to give people the idea that if you wake up, you're gonna have past life experiences or something. You might, but it's also hard to explain how that is experienced. It's not word. There's not a language that talks about that. We haven't invented it. I don't know if we could.
I can't wait for teleportation now. I'd like that.
That'd be great.
When I was a little kid, I was playing like kids do. I found some corner behind the school, and they had like squares, yellow squares drawn on some pavement, And I was playing teleportation, and I would just stand up and then.
I love it.
Still waiting for
that. That would be a good one. If you figure it out, let me know. I would like to know the recipe.
I think we covered pretty much. So much.
I think we did. It was a pleasure.
Oh, pleasure is all mine. And you know how this happened? Because of all these eyebrows in my dream. How weird is that?
There you go. I'm glad you reached out. Yeah. It's been a while. I don't remember how long ago we had our first conversation, but it's been a couple of years, right?
I checked today. It was August, not last year, year before, year and a half.
Oh, year and a half. Okay. Yeah. All right. Cool. Yeah, we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, why not? It's fun.
All right.
Freshly from the field.
I should put you on my channel. I'll interview you on my channel.
That would be lovely.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Okay.
Okay, Angelo. Thank you so much. And everyone who watched and listened, drop a comment. Share about your myths and your experiences with breaking them. It's always cool to know. Okay.
Yeah, that would be cool. I'll check out the comments. Take care.
Thank you. Bye for now.